For those of you who watched my previous Naruto Part 1 video, welcome back. It's been a while. For those of you that are new, I have a question to ask. Is Naruto one of your favorite animes? I mean, if you clicked on this video, you gotta be somewhat interested, right? I sure was when I finished Part 1. All this goes to show that there were plenty of unanswered questions, loose ends that needed to be tied, and character arcs that needed to be resolved. So imagine how happy I was when I saw that Shippuden was already airing when I finished Part 1. I started watching Naruto Shippuden around when the show was around 60-ish episodes in. Right away, the differences were obvious. The main cast is older, Naruto overall seemed more capable of his abilities here as opposed to Part 1. This was in fact emphasized when we get to the bell test. The tone throughout seemed far more mature as it deals with the greater issues of the ninja world rather than just a hidden leaf. For example, the first main arc of Shippuden deals with the Akatsuki committing a terrorist act in order to kidnap the Kazekage of the Sand Village and extracting one of the tailed beasts from his body. So the scale is obviously higher in order to accompany its more mature tone. Speaking of scale, Shippuden also faces more plot elements with the surrounding villages, and the lore is greatly expanded upon. We get to learn more about each village and, more importantly, their leaders. We get an entire arc to see how they act and interact with each other, which gives us some insight into how each villages see each other. Overall, Naruto is a bigger and more family-sized version compared to Part 1. However, bigger doesn't always mean better. Now, you read the title. Unlike my last Naruto video, this one is called The Highs and Lows for a reason. So let me get to why I think Naruto Shippuden, while fantastic, is far more inconsistent when it comes to its quality. Let's start with what I liked about Shippuden. So right off the bat, the world building and lore is just completely blown out of the water. We get to learn about how the Hidden Leaf was created. We get to learn about how the Uchiha was formed, the clash between the Uchiha and the Senjus, which in my opinion is one of the best stories in Naruto. Just so fascinating to see how it was developed. We also get to know more about the surrounding villages, like we get to learn more about the Raikage and his time with Killer Bee. The characters are much more delved deep into in terms of their arcs and just how they interact with the world. It's very, very well done. We also get to know how chakra was created, though I will talk more about the characters that created chakra or that caused the world to have chakra in that universe. However, we get to learn more about everything, right? We get to learn more about Obito and Tobi and the Akatsuki and how the Nine Tails were formed. This is all stuff that was somewhat hinted or at the very least implied in Part 1, but in Shippuden it is blown out the water. Everything is on the table. So that was one reason. Another one are the threats and the villains of the series here are much more menacing, and compared to Part 1 provide a more direct attack on Naruto as a character. You see, in Part 1 we get villains like Zabuza, Orochimaru, Kabuto, and all these villains are well done and well written, don't get me wrong. However, they were more villains of the older ninjas. Like in Zabuza was more geared towards Kakashi. He wasn't necessarily a direct attack on Naruto and his character. In fact, that was more of Haku, but Haku was more of a victim rather than an actual villain. And you can even argue Zabuza was as well. Orochimaru didn't really care much about Naruto. He cared more about Sasuke, and considering that Orochimaru was the main villain of Part 1, that was kind of a problem. The only villain or antagonist we get that is a direct attack on Naruto is Gaara, because of the Jinchurikis and just how he was treated compared to Naruto and how much similar they were as kids. In comparison, now we get to Shippuden, and Shippuden is done so well because we get more villains that are a direct attack on Naruto, and their main villains, Pain, right? You know, the similarities between both of them, how they shared Jiraiya as a sensei, how Jiraiya helped both of them view the world and how they counteract with each other. That was what made the Pain Invasion arc arguably the best arc of the show, because it was about the clash of ideals, right? Naruto's, it was the first time he really didn't have an answer, and it was the first time a villain actually made him question his own ideals. And when Naruto was stuck to the pavement and Itachi was like, all right, what would you do if you were in my position? And Naruto would be like, I'll kill you and save the world. And Pain goes like, well, what do you think I'm trying to do? I'm doing what you're doing, but for some reason it's wrong of me of doing what I'm doing and it's right for you to do what you're doing. It makes no sense. And Naruto was just there stunned, like he was looking at him, he just didn't know what to say. It was absolutely brilliant how it was handled. Obito is another one. Obito is one that in many ways is similar to Naruto, just like Gaara was, except Obito is kind of the antithesis of Naruto, right? He had everything gone completely different, Obito maybe could have been Hokage. Obito was an attack on Naruto just as much as Naruto was an attack on Obito, and that's part of the reason why I think he was so bitter towards Naruto, because he saw what he could have been, and it almost almost felt like Obito was kind of regretting his actions by the end, or like near the end before he changed. But even then, it's like you get characters like Madara, who was so entertaining and so threatening, and just blew up immediately after his initial entrance, you know, when he destroyed the entire alliance. Just downright spectacular. And this goes for a lot of the villains of the series. It's very well done. The music, I would say the music in Shippuden is better than part 1. While I do think that part 1's music is more unique in terms of the instruments that they provide, I do think the more emotional and more epic and more, I would say, resonant soundtrack, I would go to Shippuden in my opinion. But honestly, it's not even that big of a leap in terms of quality, considering part 1 was already like one of the best soundtracks I've heard in any animes. But it is a step up, I would say, from part 1. Naruto's character is also more interesting this time around. While I did say in the last video that his arc of going from zero to somewhat of a hero, right, in terms of Genin, in terms of how he was seen, by the end of part 1 he was a capable ninja. In part 2 he was the savior, he was the hero of the hidden leaf. The first main arc literally deals with Naruto saving essentially the president of another village. He was assigned that in his very first arc, and he succeeded in doing so. And not even halfway through the arc, he beats Pain and saves the entire village. He saves the village and then he goes on to save the world. So his character and how he manages to go from one of the strongest ninjas ever was honestly downright impactful and in many ways inspirational for a lot of people, especially who grew up with the series. The fights, I feel like a lot of the main fights were just getting better and better. The Sakuga animation, the flow, and just how well choreographed each fight was. Like Naruto versus Sasuke part 2, Obito versus Kakashi, like I said, Madara versus the Shinobi Alliance, Killer Bee versus Sasuke, Orochimaru versus Naruto with the Four Tails. So yeah, the fights were just downright incredible. The side characters, now I will talk about why I think the side characters are also in the low section, but in terms of the ones that are all developed, like Killer Bee, the Raikage, Shikamaru, Hinata, Gaara, all of them have been done extremely well. And when they have been done well, they hit tremendously. That Shikamaru episode, when he had to deal with the fallout of Asuma and his death, honestly one of the best written, best animated, and best performed episodes of the whole show. Gaara is another one. Remember that scene where he had to essentially motivate and bring together 5 nations of ninja to motivate them to go to war? And just Gaara's overall development from being the monster versus being a resounding leader. So I have a bonus in terms of the highs of Naruto Shippuden, and that is the openings and the endings are way better than part 1. Now obviously this isn't a main high for a reason, this is just a bonus, but that's something I've noticed when I was rewatching the show. It's just there's some openings that just consistently just kept being great, and I've noticed it, and it was fantastic. So now on with the lows and what made Naruto Shippuden worse than part 1. Right away, let's begin the side characters. What happened? Let's start with Konoha 11. They were practically non-existent in the show. Neji, who was such an important figure in part 1, right? He was the main player in like 2 of the main arcs. He doesn't do anything in Shippuden. Aside from filler episodes, he really doesn't do much. In fact, the most remembered thing he's done in Shippuden was actually die. That's about it. He's essentially the Gwen Stacy of Naruto Shippuden. But there are other characters like Kiba. Why is Kiba here? Kiba hasn't done anything since he fought Naruto in the Chunin exams. And then he goes on to be like, oh, I should have been Hokage. When in the war arc, when Sasuke made his entrance, when he told everybody, I'm gonna be Hokage, Kiba's like, oh, I'm gonna be Hokage. Dude, you haven't done anything. Chino and Ino and even Rock Lee, just nada. They have not done anything, and it's a shame because these are characters that could have been fantastic had they given their time to shine. And Sakura, what happened? In the first main arc of Shippuden, she was a main player. She was done so well. She even fought an Akatsuki member and beat him by the end. I mean, she had help from Granny Chiyo, of course, but you know, she didn't do much afterwards. In fact, she became the helpless leading lady that really hasn't done much but cry and cry and cry. It's unfortunate, but that's what she essentially was in Shippuden. Even in the war arc, when she got the power up and she had her moment to shine, but then literally like 10 episodes later, Naruto and Sasuke got a power up and now she's useless again. And she was in the sidelines when they fought Kaguya, which I will talk about in a bit. Fillers, I mean, we've talked about fillers already when it comes to Naruto, but fillers are notorious in Shippuden, downright notorious. In fact, that is part of the reason why Shippuden is even known for is the fillers. There'd be times when the fillers would go on for months, for about half a year to maybe nearly a year. I know it's not a problem watching it now. If you're watching Shippuden now, it's not going to be a problem because you can skip them. You have to understand how that would be a problem, just how much it affected the overall experience of the show. It really does affect it, and in fact it actually hampers a lot of the, what I would say, initial enthusiasm would be for a casual who want to watch Naruto, to see the amount of episodes Shippuden has compared to how much of the content or the episodes are canon. You know, there's 500 episodes, and if you cut that in half, that's essentially the canon episodes of Naruto. But if you're a casual who's never seen anime, you're gonna be like, why am I even watching this? This is too long. It ruins the initial experience of watching it week to week, and I would say it ruins any potential casual viewer, unless they have a friend who's into anime and knows all about that stuff, to really go on and watch the series. It really does. And there are points where it doesn't make sense. Why would you even have it? There was even some fillers that are just recaps of part 1 Naruto, just updated for the time it was released. Madara Uchiha is another problem. More specifically, I'm talking about the butchering of Madara Uchiha, how they managed to kill him off and they managed to make him seem like a punk by the end. And it's a problem that I'll get to a little bit on, but they introduced such a powerful villain, such a threatening villain. By the end, he just felt like they just killed him off like it was nothing. And I think one of the problems is they introduced Ten Tails, which, I'll be honest, they shouldn't have given Madara already, who's such a powerful villain, the ability to have the Ten Tails, because it just made no sense, right? What was Obito gonna do? Obito was already getting overshadowed by Madara anyways, so to give Madara this ultimate power, just put Kishimoto in a corner that he was never going to get out from, and he had to basically introduce a new threat to kill this threat off. You know, you had Might Guy there that essentially had to unlock the 8 gates. What I would have done is I would have had the 8 gates permanently affect Madara, you know, in a way that he can't recover from. Now I know this is a little bit cheating because it was already set that Madara can restore himself using the 10 tails, but who cares? Honestly, with the amount of inconsistencies in the plot that was in the war arc, bringing one more just to have Madara as the final threat wouldn't honestly be that bad. I would have personally had Might Guy basically damage Madara to the point where he can't really recover from, like, he lost an arm and I think like half a leg or something. Maybe he could have recovered the leg and just fought both Naruto and Sasuke powered up with this one arm, and just had Naruto and Sasuke beat Madara, as opposed to them having to bring in Kaguya, who is just a pointless villain, a pointless character, a character that just was void of any personality or interesting arcs or anything. I did not care for the backstory. I really didn't care for her at all. And this goes to my next point, the Otsutskis. I don't care about the Otsutskis. I don't care about the family. I don't care about any of them. They're uninteresting. The Sage of Six Paths was probably the most interesting one, but even then it's like a 3 out of 10 for me. I just don't care about this family. In fact, I would say they ruined Naruto. They single-handedly damaged the brand, and you can see that in Boruto, and I know part 2 of Boruto is coming, and it already came, but damage has been done already. The Otsutskis, they did not fit with the Naruto and the brand and ninjas. They just felt like they came from another anime. It was really, really bad the way it's been done. It also introduced the whole fact that Naruto was seen as a chosen one. It's like, why Naruto should never be seen as a chosen one. He should be seen as somebody who was nobody, that came from something, and he became a hero of the world because he put in the work, right? Not that, oh, the Otsutskis came and now they introduced the fact that Naruto was part of like some historic clan that he was reincarnated from, and now it's boring. It's not interesting. The Fourth Great Ninja War is another big problem. The Fourth Great Ninja War, I would say, is basically a culmination of what I think of Naruto Shippuden as a whole. Well, not really, because I think overall Naruto Shippuden is pretty good, but I think the Fourth Great Ninja War had so many great elements in it that unfortunately there was just as many bad elements in it. First of all, the timeline of the war just feels off. It doesn't feel like a war. It feels like they battled for a weekend. You know, wars are supposed to be long spanning, like they're supposed to change the climate of the world, and in some cases it did, but in some cases it didn't, because right after the war ended, what really happened? What really changed? What happens to the ninja world? How does it affect people? When people go to war, when they come back to war, it's not something they just come back from and it's something that, oh well, we fought them and it's all good. No, it affects people for their entire lives. And I know this might seem like a nothing issue, but it could have brought a new element to Naruto had they would have been a little more careful about what the ramifications of war can really bring, right? Considering this is a show about ninjas and war is a big part of that, of the show, I think it would have really helped it. How does Naruto like get affected as a character through just the act of war, him being the main player of war, seeing deaths around him? He saw his friend die in front of him. It's insane. He saw multiple people die. And not only that, but the power scaling of the war was a problem. Naruto literally fought main villain after main villain for like non-continuously without breaks. I mean, until he died. You remember that time he died for like a little bit before he got reincarnated again? And then he goes on to fight Sasuke, and how does he have so much energy? I know he's the savior or whatever, but it just doesn't make any sense. And I think it kind of not ruins it, but it shows the lack of inconsistencies with the power scaling and everything. Another issue was waiting for Sasuke to come back into the very end. I think Sasuke coming back at the very end of Shippuden was a mistake. I think he should have came back the earliest, like right after the pain arc ended, because by having Sasuke be the final threat of Naruto Shippuden and basically Naruto's story, what that essentially kind of does is it minimizes Naruto's main journey of being Hokage. Naruto's story, the way it should have ended, was with him becoming Hokage, right? That should have been the final goal. And I know he becomes that in Boruto, but we get to see that off screen. We don't even get to see it. In fact, when he does become Hokage, that was Konohamaru, and it was done as a joke. Like, this was something that we've all wanted to see ever since episode 3 or episode 1 when we first met Naruto. You remove the element of him being Hokage, and not only that, but other than Naruto becoming stronger, what does Naruto really learn about being a leader? Because if it were up to me, I'd give it to Shikamaru. Shikamaru was the brains, right? To be a leader, yeah, you gotta be strong, but that's why you have warriors. To be a leader, you need to know how to like deal with the battlefield. You have to know the strategic elements of how fighting should be done. You should know how to like talk with people and negotiate. Naruto really doesn't know how to do that. In fact, what he does more, he kind of preach about things, but he doesn't really negotiate or do any of that. We don't get to see any of that. And I know it's the boring aspect of it, but you can make it interesting, and it's a part of being Hokage, being a leader. And we get to see his growth as being a strong, capable ninja, but we don't see this growth as being a more mature and intellectual person, unfortunately. And we get implied that he does that after the end of Shippuden and during the last, but that's something I would have wanted to see more of. And having Sasuke just be kind of the main drive for Naruto doing what he did, I just think it hampered the show, and it hampered what I think made part 1 so special. So listen, when Naruto Shippuden gets good, it's one of the best animes ever made. The emotion is there, the writing is stellar when it wants to be, the music is impactful, and the characters become unforgettable. However, when Shippuden misses, it misses hard. The side characters get sidelined and ultimately forgotten. The villains get mistreated, it gets hammered with fillers, the power scaling gets inconsistent, and the story ultimately ends up losing focus. It is a series with highs and lows, and while it is one of the best experiences I've ever had with anime, I mean, I grew up with it practically, it isn't perfect. And looking back at the show now with a more critical eye, I've grown to appreciate how much I still love this show no matter the flaws, because at the end of the day, this franchise became a pillar in anime, and it is being used now as an inspiration from other mangas to take and form their own stories, and hopefully improved on the foundations that this series itself built upon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys disagree, please let me know down in the comments. If you guys agree, like the video, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Let's have a discussion down in the comments. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.